Hi everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you all for coming here to watch this inspiring documentary. When Aryan shared with me about the story, like I immediately said yes, that I want to be a part of it. I grew up in a beautiful valley, and it also snows there in the winter, so I had seen skiing and in my community as well, which was oftentimes more for like tourists, but I always loved when the local community would also enjoy it as much as everybody else. But that was also affected by the extremism that happened in my hometown. So when I heard about the story, I knew that this is something so important, because simple things like expressing yourself or even just playing or skiing can be a form of resistance for the local community who are facing so many hardships. I am so proud to be part of this documentary. I want to thank Aryan for making this possible. I want to thank the directors, the amazing team who made this happen. And I know that this story will stay with many of you, and I hope that you learn something from it. So, Aryan.
Thank you, Malala. Yeah, it's incredible that you said that, Malala, because also I was born in Iran, and we also are next to a mountainside. And you know, when you talk about the Middle East, for many people, maybe not some of the UN folks here, but for many people, it's hard to see anything other than desert or extremism, but there's so much richness and so much humanity and so much resilience and so much fun that you will all see tonight in this beautiful documentary called Champions of the Golden Valley. I just want to say, during the festival, there's a bunch of like festivals that happen. I was getting calls from my veteran friends, and I was getting called from my Afghan friends, being like, you have to see this documentary. And when you have something that from both sides of the world, you know you're onto something special. So Ben and Katie and Bakhtash and everyone here and Felicia, thank you all for doing this. A couple of other things, we're gonna have a Q&A right afterwards, and we would love for you to be for that as well. And thank you so much, and enjoy Champions of the Golden Valley.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Q&A, and thanks everyone for staying here. My name is Sonia Kennebeck, and I'm going to moderate the Q&A. I'll start by an introduction, and then we'll also open up for questions for the audience. I'll start thinking about some questions. So I would like to introduce first the director, DP, and editor of this film, Ben Stuberlewski.
Yeah.
Producers, Katie Sternholm and Bakhtash Ahadi. And the executive producer, Aryan Moayed.
Perfect.
So I would first like to know from Ben and Katie, can you tell us how this film came about? Because I understand you didn't initially plan to make a feature-length documentary.
Yeah, correct. So I am born and raised in Alaska. I'm a mountain guy. I grew up in the mountains, and eventually I translated that into a career filming in the mountains. And so I would travel around the world making ski commercials and films for Patagonia and North Face and these outdoor brands, and really exploring mountain cultures around the world. And in 2019, I had read about the Afghan Ski Challenge in a magazine, and I was like, wow, that sounds extremely just fascinating. Like, who would have thought there would be a ski culture there? And so we got a little group together and we went over there. And you know, when I arrived, of course, it was just so much more than I possibly could have imagined. Like the ingenuity and the resourcefulness and the warmth of that community. Honestly, yeah, it still sends shivers down my spine thinking about it. We were so welcomed into this beautiful kind of ski culture that, you know, is so unlikely. And then we had this incredible film experience where, you know, a lot of times when you're making documentary, things just seem to go wrong all the time. And on this one, everything went right. You know, we had this amazing rivalry story that developed. The ski race, you know, was kind of the storybook ending of the ski race, and just everything clicked. And at the end of that, we were like, wow, there's really something here. Let's try to really dig in and tell a longer, deeper story than we'd initially imagined. And so I worked on that film for 2 years. You know, COVID happened and everything got slowed down, and we were about to release that short. It was a short film. It was a 40-minute film back in 2021, and we were in sound and color finalizing that, and then Afghanistan was suddenly coming. You know, we were getting messages from our friends there saying like, hey, things aren't looking too good. Is there anything that you could do? And it looks like, you know, the country might collapse. And sure enough, August 14th, 2021, you know, the Taliban came into Kabul, and that was just kicked off an extremely intense time for all of us. And Katie, it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. As a producer, she just stepped in and she started working, trying to help get some of these people out of the country. We spent several weeks, as I know many people in this room may have done, and Sonia, I know that you were deeply involved with this yourself, but it was a very intense time. It completely changed the dynamic of what the film was. And Katie, maybe you want to talk a little bit more about that experience?
I think the reality is that when you witness what everyone was going through, and Bakhtash was evacuating family and friends, and so was Aryan, and so was Sonia, trying to support film protagonists and friends in Afghanistan, and there was this really incredible network of people coming together from the veteran community, from NGOs, international governments, to just work to support the evacuation and to get safe passages out of Afghanistan, and it was a really harrowing time. And to be honest, we just put the film on the shelf. We've had many people say, oh, did you film during that time? And it was just absolutely not the focus. Really trying to get, the core focus was getting the female athletes especially to safety, and Ali Shah and his family. And we let months pass, and we watched as people boarded planes, not knowing where those planes were going to be landing. They would get a seat on a flight, and they would wake up in Macedonia. Families were separated. It was incredibly harrowing to witness. And as we stayed in touch with Ali Shah, who had really we'd become close to him, we watched in which the courage he and his family resettled. And there was a really specific moment, I could paint the picture, I remember it so vividly, when he says, when I'm in the supermarket, everyone looks at me like I'm a refugee and I don't belong. And I just wish they knew I was a skier, and I wish they knew I was a coach. And I think that just changed us. And Ben and I thought, well, we documented this community when it was intact. And so many people and so many refugee stories and so many refugee documentaries, which are crucial and so important to be telling, they start at the peak moment of someone's loss, someone's trauma. And what does it look like to tell the story of what they left behind? And so Ben and I felt a responsibility to tell this story in a different way. We took the 40-minute film, we basically dropped it on the floor like a vase and started over, but really that was about integrating Ali Shah's, as you saw the film today. So it was, we would have never thought we'd still be working on this film when production started in 2019, but with documentary, you know, life unfolds, and this was the story we were supposed to tell.
And Bakhtash, I know you were already involved when it was a short film, so can you tell us here why it was important to you to be part of a feature-length film then instead of just a short film?
Yeah. First and foremost, I just want to thank everybody for being here. You all could be anywhere else in the world, but you decided to be here. Thank you so much. It's a wonderful honor as filmmakers to have an audience come and watch our film, so I just want to say thank you. I want to start with gratitude. Part of my life's work is to continue to tell stories of Afghanistan. And the reason for that is because my family came to America when I was Jamal's age. Ali Shah's youngest son. So my family came to the United States in 1986 during the Afghan-Soviet War. If you all remember that time. The United States was battling the Soviet Union. That battlefield was in Afghanistan. My parents fled, went to Pakistan for 2 years. Had makeshift homes in Pakistan for about 2 years, and then lo and behold, a Lutheran church sponsored my family. And we landed in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, where my parents still are today. And growing up, I remember the only image and story that I heard of Afghanistan was one of war, and the only image that I saw was that young Afghan girl's face on the cover of National Geographic. And that was it. At that time, if you went into Encyclopedia Britannica and looked up Afghanistan, it would say war with the Soviets. And that's all it would really say. And so part of my life's work is to continue to tell stories of Afghanistan, because when I was a child, I wanted to learn about what this place was that I was born into. And I think that's something that I carry with me, is what's the legacy that I want to leave behind? What did I need when I was a boy? So that really kind of filters the projects that I work on. And what's amazing about this film is that it's the best film I've ever worked on. It's the best film I've ever worked on. As you all can tell, it's about a beautiful community that's lost something really, really valuable. I think what's really special about this film, Sonia, specifically, is that it's one of the only films I think that exists where it captures a before and after the collapse. A before and after the collapse. And Ben's such a fantastic cinematographer. He's such a fantastic director. The imagery is beautiful, but the story is really prescient. And so I hope one of the things you all take away with you is the fact that this is a story, this is a refugee story, and there are refugees all over the world right now. And there's so many more Ali Shahs in the world. So I want to share that with all of you. Thank you.
It's also a sport film, a competition film, a film about community. And Ariane, what made you want to be involved as an executive producer? And you know, I assume that you have a personal connection as well that made you want to be involved?
Well, no, I did it for the money.
There's no money in this film.
Just like Bakhtash and so many refugees, immigrants here, my family came to the States in 1986, started over. We were in the grocery store, oftentimes thinking about, I wonder what my mom would say. I wish they would have known I am at that moment. And then I have this I became an artist, which is exactly what every Iranian parent wants. And really what happened at that moment is I just, whether it was, ego or whatnot, I feel like Bakhtash and so many of us here, have to retell the story of who we are through documentaries, through sports, through fun, through laughter, because otherwise what's going to happen is every Afghan or every Iranian or every name it other country is going to be put into pockets where someone else is telling our stories. And so I find that torch to be a really exciting torch. I honestly feel that my job as an artist is to keep pushing that torch forward and getting light on everybody. So it was a real easy kind of, and I said it earlier, I know it's special when two groups of people from completely different sides of the world are saying, go watch this movie. And moments like that are very rare. And when they happen, you have to listen to the instincts that are around you. And that and the money. No, but that's really the reason. It's just a real opportunity. Most people don't even know that there's mountains in Afghanistan or the Middle East or Iran. They don't know. So to have skiing there is just a transformative piece. And it's really, to praise Ben again, it really is well directed and it's got a very beautiful vision. And you have to realize you're on the mountains and in Bamiyan Mountains, and he's like, I'm gonna try this with slow-mo, which is a risk, because if it doesn't work, that shot's gone. So that takes real belief of what you're witnessing, and so those are the reasons.
Most people also, including myself, don't know there's money in documentaries, so we have to talk about that afterwards.
There's not $1.
Are there any audience questions yet? So please raise your hand and I will point you out. Please go ahead.
I'm just wondering where this film will go after this. Like, who else will get the opportunity to see the film, and how are you distributing it?
Thanks so much for the question.
Yeah, did everyone understand it? So basically, is where else will the film go afterwards, where it's going to be distributed? So, Katie.
I do think of filmmaking, which, yes, there is very little to no money in it, but it is like the Afghan Ski Challenge. It's like pushing a film up a mountain. It's kind of what this feels like. Independent documentary, it's a really challenging landscape, and we were so fortunate to premiere at Tribeca last summer and have had an incredible festival run. The truth is that it's difficult for distribution right now, and so what a lot we rely on is impact campaigns, where we have been screening this film in schools, in community centers and with organizations who resettle refugees. The Impact Campaign has been a huge focus of ours. But in terms of just, I wish we could wave a magic wand and it would be on a major streaming platform, but that hasn't happened for us. So at the end of the day, we are just showing this in small rooms, and it's up to our audiences to tell your friends about the film, to write a letterbox review, there's such a demand. I actually was told by a friend in the industry that they're like, Netflix is looking for background entertainment, content people fold their laundry to. And I'm like, well, people are probably gonna fold their laundry to this movie. But we feel that it's important because we are in an interesting moment where we need to have curiosity about people's stories. And when we look around and it feels like things are so polarized and there's such a distance between us and other people, it's so important to tell a story because I think that shortens the distance of our understanding of other people and what they've been through. And so for us, the answer is we don't have distribution. We're doing a very kind of underdog screening campaign, and our hope is that more audiences will see it, and we appreciate the question, and we're open to ideas because it's not something we've figured out quite yet.
And could you actually share with the audience here how they can elevate the film, websites, social media accounts, because word of mouth for independent documentaries is very important.
All right, well, because you asked, we have an Instagram, Champions Doc, and we have a website as well, Champions of the Golden Valley or championsdoc.com. And on that website, it's really exciting because we share about our impact partners. We sell Ski Afghanistan t-shirts where each purchase, 100% of the revenue goes to making a pair of wooden skis in Afghanistan. We've been incredibly fortunate to just keep the wooden ski fleet going, ensure that the Afghan Ski Challenge, as you saw, the boss just won in February, but keep that going. But yeah, letterbox reviews, IMDb reviews. We're doing a theatrical in LA in early November, so tell your friends in LA. So it's a real grassroots effort. I wish it could just be go to our website, but there is more information there, but it is a lot just spreading the word.
Yeah, and I just want to say, it might feel like a small thing, just spreading the word and putting it on socials, but it actually is huge. Because the more eyeballs and the more people and the more, data points that we have on this, honestly, the more chances that this will have an audience to, it is an incredibly difficult landscape doing documentary films, underdog documentary films, independent documentary films. And then you have Afghanistan in the world, so it makes it difficult for a lot of folks. But the reality is that audiences like this have been coming left and right because they've been really floored by it, floored by the story of Ali Shah, floored by the story that they're still skiing, and in a way, those impacts that you do by social media and all that, those really have much greater reach than just getting this distributed. It really moves an entire country of people that are trying to ski to make that happen. I also want to just say this is one of the most awarded films of this season, and I also feel it's amazing. And I also want to say I do feel confident that it will have a life in on your laptop soon.
So may I ask one question to the audience actually? How many people in this room know of an Afghan family? Great. How many people in this room know of a veteran family that has served in Afghanistan? This film you could share with those folks, or you could share with communities that have and hold these folks. Ultimately, what we would love as a film team is we would love for our film to act as a catalyst for a conversation about what it means to be American right now. I mean, after the collapse, over 100,000 Afghans came to America in 3 months. Some are still waiting in the Middle East in places like Macedonia and Qatar. And then even more that are still waiting in Afghanistan. So really what I would love, and I think what we love as a film team, is to have this film act as a catalyst for a conversation about America's longest war in Afghanistan. And then also, what does it mean to be somebody who has served in America, or served American interests in a place like Afghanistan? My sense is I was a military interpreter for 3 years. There are a lot of veterans suffering. There are a lot of veterans suffering from PTSD who believe that their service was done in vain. By the way, suicide rates have gone up in the veteran community because of the collapse. And this type of film will actually be an incredible thing to it may even be cathartic. So that's just one thing I'd love you to just kind of think about, in addition to the Afghans that may be in communities across the United States.
Please. first word first and then afterwards the second.
I was wondering what the thought process was behind the like switching scenes between like black and white and then like in color, and how like
So the question was about the thought process, switching scenes between the black and white and the color, which I actually had that question as well. So Ben.
Well, I sometimes joke that I just stole it from the Wizard of Oz, but I think it's a simple tool, but I think in this capacity, it makes narrative sense. And as we were trying to distinguish like the different worlds of Afghanistan and Germany, because of course we shot the Afghanistan stuff in 2019, we shot the Germany material in 2022, and I mean, as you see in the film, Ali Shah's life then and in 2022 could not have been more different. And really, when I was there, he was sitting in this barren apartment. They had nothing because it was just the apartment that had been provided by the government, and it was empty. And they were literally rebuilding their lives and buying everything because they left with just the backpacks on their shoulders. And so I was just struck by how just devoid of anything it was. It just felt like they were living this empty life. And Ali Shah, he felt like a shell. I felt like he couldn't see, there were beautiful parts of Germany, but he couldn't see it because his mind was back in the past. It was back in Afghanistan, where his family was, where his loved ones were, where the community that he built was. And it was literally like he couldn't see color anymore. And in the original 40-minute film, it was just set in Afghanistan. It was so colorful. It was this just it was pure joy. And the purple jumpsuits and the blue skies and the red rocks and there was so much color bursting out of every frame, and we really leaned into that in that short film, and because we wanted to show a different side of Afghanistan, because in the media it's often portrayed as a dark, kind of gloomy place, and that is not the Afghanistan that we were privileged to see. So we wanted to show this world bursting with color, and we wanted to show what happened when that world they had to leave that, and so literally the color was sucked out of life. And at the end, you see that kind of reinjected as he starts to be able to see the color creep back into his perception. And actually, I just love it because you see that room he's sitting in is pink. It's this weird bright pink, and it's this glorious color palette. And it's like, even though it's empty, you start to see the beauty of the world around you. Yeah.
Can I share something quickly? I do want to share that when we ended the film, Ali Shah was just getting used to his life in Germany, and I did want to share that since the film, we've stayed in touch with Ali Shah. We were able to fundraise to bring him to New York for our Tribeca premiere. He loved New York. He had never been to America before. His brother is on an SIV visa in Michigan, so we had, just through small donations, flew him out to see his brother, who we thought he would never see again. But since, he did struggle where they were when they first were relocated to Eastern Germany, but they've since moved to a town called Eichstätt in Western Germany, and Ali Shah has work. The community is really welcoming to him, and he wants us to share that, because it's not every town, it's not every neighbor that says you don't belong, and it means so much when Ali Shah meets people that make him feel welcome. And so he and his family are doing really well. Jamal and Mariam are in school, and he's still very much a part of our impact campaign. He just went to a festival last weekend. It was the first time the film played in Germany. And so I just want to share that even after the film ends and the credits roll, his life is still unfolding, and he's really doing well and is a part of this conversation.
And is he close to the mountains? Is he skiing still?
He wants to be skiing still. He's about 2 hours from Munich. He hasn't had the most ample opportunities. We did bring him out to ski in Colorado and Wyoming. It was just the most amazing thing. He's had 2 trips for the film, and it was just the most memorable thing. But his goal would be to have work where he could ski on the weekends, and he's still rebuilding, but that's a dream of his. He would also love to see the Olympics has a refugee team for the Summer Olympics, and it's there's no team for the Winter Olympics. So we hope that our impact campaign can start that conversation too.
It's a big goal, but a very important one.
Yeah.
You had a question?
Yeah, so it's so beautiful to watch films. It's such a good way to understand the people and the culture and historical moments. And, it really hits you a lot different than a book. So I wondered if you have other examples of good films about Afghanistan and Iran as well, since we have you here. I think just from the US perspective, we can do a lot more to understand both these situations that the government obviously continues to be involved in. So I don't know from your two experiences if you have films or filmmakers you recommend.
Sure. I mean, do you want to start? I'm like rattling like 15 movies here.
Like,
Say that movie.
what's really, love the question, thank you so much. I have to say that one of my favorite films was the first film that I ever worked on. It's a film called Frame by Frame.
Oh yeah.
And it's a film about 4 photojournalists that put their lives at risk to capture the truth in Afghanistan. And that's where I fell in love with filmmaking. Let me tell you what I mean. Is I got connected to the 2 filmmakers, the 2 directors, a mutual friend, and they reached out to me and said, we have this body of footage and we don't really know what's being said here. Can you translate this for us? And at this time I was in Washington, D.C. thinking I wanted to be a diplomat and all of that. All of that. This was many, many, many moons ago. Nonetheless, I took a look at the footage that they shared and I realized, like, not only was it beautifully shot, but I'd be very happy to do this work. So we got on the phone and they said, well, great, we'd love for you to translate all of our footage. How much do you cost? I said, $2,000. And they're like, okay, come meet us right now.
You're like, I should have said 20.
I was so entranced. I was so enchanted by the footage.
Yeah.
So they brought me to Portland, Oregon. We spent about 4 months in post. And then we premiered at South by Southwest. And I have to tell you, I didn't watch the film when I watched the first time that it premiered. I watched the audience's reaction to it. And it was the first time I realized that you can fill an audience, a theater with 90 people, and they can walk out with a completely different perspective on the world in just 90 minutes. And that's where I learned the power of filmmaking. And since then, I've been hooked. That film is called Frame by Frame. You can watch it all the time. They own it.
And with regards to Iranian films, I mean, just because of it's a long tradition of amazing films and filmmakers, and mostly because of since the '79 revolution, the filmmakers there are, I would say, arguably some of the greatest filmmakers in the world. There's a movie right now called It Was Just an Accident by Jafar Panahi that's probably going to get nominated for an Oscar. Last year's Seed of the Sacred Fig, A Separation, White Balloon, I can keep going. But I would say that there is, if you do some searching, there's, I would say, 5 to 7 directors that are major filmmakers that make everything happen, really just kind of move the medium forward. One of my favorite films, literally ever, is a movie called Close Up, which is a half documentary, half fiction, made in 1990 about a man impersonating another filmmaker. And it's considered one of the great movies ever made. So Close Up by Kiarostami.
I'll connect these 2 worlds. There's another film where an Afghan man falls in love with an Iranian woman. That film is called Gunai Man, which means my sin. Watch it. It's our 2 worlds connected.
There you go.
You had a question?
I thought it was wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. Can you talk about how you gain the trust to have the people be so natural and genuine with you? Because I'm sure there's not a lot of film crews that come into their town to document their lives.
Yeah, so my access to this story was through the world of skiing, and that's what I spent my entire life doing. And every film I've ever made has something to do with the outdoors and getting into these mountain cultures. And I've made ski films in a variety of mountain ranges around the world, from Japan to Nepal to all over the place. But so when I arrived in Bamyan and I met these guys, we quickly bonded through just the simple act of skiing. And we didn't have a translator who could ski, so we left him in the village and he was translating for us there. But when we went into the mountains, I couldn't talk to these guys, so I was just like, traversing avalanche terrain with them, moving through these complicated, peaks and valleys, and they were showing us their favorite spots, and we were trying out their ski gear, and they were trying out ours, and it was just this act of translation through the medium of skiing. And after day 1, we were very good friends, and literally I think it was the second day in which I was like, we thought there was going to be no way we were going to be able to film him praying. And in this prayer room inside, because we've been told, okay, you're probably only going to be able to film outside of these guys. and we went skiing for a day. And the next day they were like, yeah, come on in. So it was really remarkable. It just instantly opened us up, and we connected in just like this really authentic, beautiful way, and learned a lot from one another. And it's also, yeah, when you're moving through avalanche terrain like that, you kind of just very quickly learn trust, And these guys knew exactly where all the avalanches went around their villages. They saw them out of their, their back window all winter long. So it was, I looked at skiing as almost this translational tool that it really allowed us to connect so quickly.
In the last row.
So this is for the director, but for any of you as you're involved in your involvement in this film, how do you keep your equanimity, emotionally speaking, when you're so invested, I would imagine, in these people's lives, and then something like this occurs? How did you navigate that?
Yeah.
Do you want to repeat the question?
Oh yeah. So when you're so personally invested in the film, how do you navigate? How do you, I think, keep perspective? And I think, it's a really difficult question to answer. I think, this film became so intensely personal for Katie and I and Baktash. And, it was just deeply, of course it's hard to like compare our experience watching Afghanistan collapse as, you can't compare that experience to the people on the ground, of course. So. Not saying that, but we left that experience feeling like, wow, we're just gutted. There's no other way to describe it, but I felt so empty and hopeless inside, and I just couldn't figure out. Well, even far beyond the film was just kind of like an afterthought. But it's just like, man, what's left after this? Like, these beautiful relationships that we formed. This community that we documented, like it doesn't seem like there's anything left here, and it was just devastating, and I couldn't make any sense of it. And about 6 months passed, and we kind of just didn't even touch the film. There was just nothing to be. I just didn't know how we could proceed at all with it. And then finally, Alishal had gotten a little bit settled in Germany, and I called him up and I said, hey, is there any chance could I just fly over there and could I bring a camera and can we just talk about this? And so I went over there with a camera assistant, just the two of us, and we just had multiple 5-6 hour conversations with him, and just sat there in that apartment with him in that chair, and just talked. And he cried a lot, I cried a lot, and we just, I don't know, like it was therapy, through the medium of filming that, and it was therapy for him, and it was therapy for me, and we both left that, I think. Of course, there was still so much to figure out, but I don't think Alisha had ever talked about that out loud in many of those experiences, and I hadn't talked about it out loud. So, I think for me personally, when I left that, I was like, okay, there's something here. There's a story. There's another story to tell outside of the one that we had told, which is this refugee story. And at that point, it felt like a responsibility and like to be able to translate that narrative as we had experienced it. And yeah, I would say it's been a long road to some degree of closure to that event. And of course, Alisha lives it every day, but I think it's this film in many ways has been a healing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we're wrapping things up, but just, I translated your question a little bit differently in terms of like what we've seen this story evolve over 6 years, and there is so much heaviness, there is so much weight. What the refugee community is experiencing right now is unfathomable, and there's been 12,000 Afghans who have their temporary protection TPS status revoked, and there's a lot of weight, like you said. Like, how do you keep, and for me, it's like, how do you keep hope? And like each of you showing up here today, like telling this story, having champions like Aryan and Malala believe in our film to say people need this story right now. Like for me, there is a lot of weight and there is a lot of trauma we've witnessed and endured, and at the same time, I think it's people coming together in community like they did in Bamyan, with their ingenuity, with their resourcefulness, with their joy. The last thing I'll say is I think like this film for me, there's so much the world demands of us, like that they want us to care about, that there's so much suffering. And I do think like one of the reasons we're able to relate to the story is because it's not just the suffering we're asking you to feel, we're also asking you to feel the joy. And when you experience both, I think that again just like increases our ability to have empathy and understanding. So like us being able to share the story gives us great energy, gives us great hope. Each of you showing up here tonight, and we're just so grateful. So thank you to UNA NYC for making this all possible.
The film team will be around a little bit more, right, for conversation. So Please save your questions for them, and otherwise, I just want to say, all of us, thank you for this wonderful time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.